Well, I was asked to do a special segment on the LA preachers. Well, I thought about it for a while, and then I wrote a little small article and posted on Facebook. But I think I had better spend a few more moments dealing with, quote, the LA preachers. So I want you to stay tuned, and you can give me your response. Well, we're going to be speaking to you today concerning the LA preachers. All right? Let me give you a little disclaimer and a qualifying statement concerning preachers, period. All right? Well, my natural father began preaching the gospel when I was 2 years old. Well, that makes him a preacher of the gospel for 65 years and a half, if you please. He started in August of 1948. As an evangelist, he carried us, his boys, around with him. As a matter of fact, we traveled with him year-round to evangelistic services until I went into the military. Okay? So that was some years. And we got a chance to, as youth, to be around many pastors, evangelists, prophets, if you please. And at that time, we didn't know it, but they were teachers, they were apostles, etc. Well, and when I returned from the military in 68, he was pastoring by that time, and I joined in the pastoral ministry, that is, under his pastorate at that time, until I went out evangelistically full-time. That was in 1977. And then in 81, I started pastoring, doing evangelistic work around the world. So I've gotten to know preachers pretty well, all right? Okay. And one day as I was ruminating over the reality of what I heard and saw over the years and had questions concerning and have received many questions from many people over the years about how can you live sloppy agape, greasy grace, and yet seem as if you're yet in the race because you're preaching the gospel. People are getting saved, healed, filled, and thrilled. But the minister is doing one thing and then another thing. One thing is preaching the gospel, and another thing, you would have thought that he didn't know the Lord at all. Well, there's a passage in Ezekiel chapter 44, beginning around verse 10 through verse 14. It speaks about the priests, the Levites, those who were responsible for being the go-between between the people and God. And so what happened was, as I read verse 10, it says, the Levites that are gone away far from me when Israel went astray, which went astray from me after their idols, they shall bear their iniquity. Oh, wow. Well, what happens to a lot of us preachers is that depending on the effect that the crowd has on us, we will either stand true or we'll be led away because of the people into idolatrous ministry. In other words, the people are caught up with idolatry and have a type of influence on the preacher that the preacher is very self-conscious and people dependent. Self-conscious, people dependent. So that minister is drawn away into idolatry, yet ministering to the people who drew him away, and now he's involved with the ministry of iniquity. And that word iniquity is an Old Testament term, means without law or without guidelines. So here, a minister of old can be overlaid on those ministers today. Let me go ahead and read verse 11. Yet they shall be ministers in my sanctuary. How about that? If God would mark iniquity, who would stand? So God is using a lot of ministers who are idolatrous in their orientation and iniquitous in their ministries. But yet they are the Lord's ministers, okay? LA preachers, Vegas preachers, Detroit preachers, Dallas preachers, Chicago preachers, London preachers, Paris preachers, anything that the world influences the church with, and the church influences the preacher, bringing the preacher into an idolatrous relationship with the people and an iniquitous ministry before the Lord. There you have it. They're yet the Lord's ministers. Then it goes on. It says, having charge at the gates of the house, ministering to the house, they shall slay the burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall stand before them to minister unto them, because they minister unto them before their idols and cause the house of Israel to fall into iniquity. Therefore, check this, therefore I lifted up my hand against them, said the Lord, and they shall bear their iniquity. Verse 13, and they shall not come near unto me, to do the office of a priest unto me, nor to come near to any of my holy things in the most holy place, but they shall bear their shame and their abominations which they have committed. Wow. Look, just because people are getting saved, healed, filled, and thrilled doesn't mean that that minister is approved of God. There are many, many ministers, and I'm not just talking about the LA preachers. It's kind of obvious with the majority of them that they're caught up with the people. And the people taking them on a ride, and they're going on that ride. The problem is that you don't realize that they're not approved because it's not about the people or the house that determines whether they are approved or not. That only tells you that they are used of God, but not necessarily approved of God. The only thing that can determine whether a person in the ministry is approved of God is that God have allowed them to come near to Him, to minister to Him, and be a partaker of the holy things, the depths of God's word, in the most holy place. Remember, there was the outer court, the holy place, and the most holy place in the tabernacle in the wilderness. Well, anybody can minister in the outer court because you don't need a revelation to do it. Natural sunlight, natural understanding, intellectualism, a nice IQ would do it in the outer court. In the holy place, you had the lampstand with the candlesticks and illumination. So there are ministers who have been illuminated and they speak prophetically, but they're yet in the holy place, but they hadn't come near to the Lord in the most holy place behind the veil. So just because people are operating in the gifts of the Spirit, doesn't mean that they are approved of God. So don't get all thrilled and excited and jumping over pews because you see somebody receive a miracle and they're all excited. Oh, this is a great man of God. What a woman of God. Check their prayer life, my friends. See if they can stay in God's presence all night long. Or have God lifted up His hand against them and they cannot come near. Most ministers in public prayer meetings, in congregations, those ministers don't get on their knees with the congregation and pray. They don't do it. They're in their offices with their feet on their desk, not knees on the floor. They come out with the cape and with the entourage and stage right. Let's roll the cameras. Friends, don't fool yourself. LA preachers, Detroit preachers, Dallas preachers, Little Rock preachers. Let me kind of wrap this up. In Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 9, it says, and moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yea, he gave good heed, and sought out and set in order many proverbs. Friends, it's not the hype, huh? It's the sobriety, the soberness, it's the gravity of the matter. It's whether we are walking in wisdom or not. My last reference is 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 5, where it says, "And spare not the old world, but save Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly." LA preachers are not going to bring judgment to this world. The LA preachers are going to bring judgment to the church. The judgment of God begins at the church of God, and write it down. When people finally decide that they're not going anywhere with the hype, someone might lose their life. It's the preacher of righteousness, not the LA preachers or the Detroit preachers or the Little Rock preachers. The preachers of righteousness are those who are of use and approved of God and can minister not only to the house and the people, but minister to the Lord himself. They can get in his face. Friends, check it out and then get back with me. Until the next time, God bless.